A simple trip to a Memphis bakery turned into a storm of 22 bullets. Today, we take you inside the courtroom where secrets about young Dolph's killers are finally being exposed, and it shook the entire city. A white Mercedes, two masked gunmen, and within seconds, a rap legend was gone. But the real question is, was this just street violence or a bigger industry conspiracy? Every Thanksgiving, young Dolph gave back to his city with love and generosity. But that November, before he could reach his charity drive, his life was stolen in broad daylight. The question is why? Tonight, Memphis officials are urging everyone to stay indoors unless it is absolutely necessary to go out. The police chief has made a public appeal for safety, especially after the tragic killing of rapper Young Dolph at a local South Memphis cookie shop. Extra police officers will be stationed across the city in areas linked to Dolph, in hopes of preventing further violence. The trial surrounding young Dolph's passing has officially begun, and already shocking claims are being made. In opening statements, Dolph's own bodyguard testified that Dolph had a long-standing feud with CMG, the music label owned by Yo Gotti. According to him, this rivalry created years of tension in the rap world. When asked in court if Dolph had problems with other labels, the bodyguard firmly answered, "Yes, sir, CMG." This introduction immediately let the jury know that Dolph had powerful enemies in the industry. Prosecutors then began to read aloud police files that had never been made public before. Inside those files were painful details about the final moments of young Dolph's life, including his very last words. The courtroom grew quiet as each line was revealed, leaving family members, friends, and even strangers in attendance with heavy hearts. To make sense of the tragedy, prosecutors reminded the jury that they had to return to where it all began, Tuesday, November 17, 2021. On that bright afternoon, Memphis rapper Young Dolph stepped into Makida's homemade butter cookies, a small bakery he had always loved visiting whenever he returned home. For many locals, Makida's was just a neighborhood shop, but for Dolph, it was comfort and familiarity. He often stopped there not only for the cookies, but also to show support for a local Black-owned business. It was supposed to be a normal day, an ordinary stop at a favorite spot. At the time, Dolph was 36 years old and in the city for something that had become his personal tradition, giving back. Every November, he hosted a Thanksgiving charity event where he and his team from Paper Route Empire handed out turkeys to families in need. It was his way of staying connected to the community that raised him, a chance to remind people that despite his fame and success, he never forgot where he came from. He would personally show up at the drives, shaking hands, smiling for pictures, and reminding young kids in the city that success was possible without leaving your people behind. But in November of 2021, the charity drive was different. While Dolph was in Memphis, he did not actually make it to the turkey giveaway. Instead, he stopped by Makida's that afternoon, perhaps thinking it would be a quick errand before his schedule continued. No one could have guessed that this simple trip would turn into the end of his life. According to prosecutors, security footage shows the moment a white, two-door Mercedes pulled up outside of the bakery. Two masked men suddenly leapt out of the vehicle, both armed. In seconds, the peace of the day was shattered. Witnesses described how the men stormed toward the storefront, opening fire through the glass. Inside the bakery, Dolph had almost no time to react. He was caught off guard, standing only a few steps away from the counter where he had been waiting for his order. Reports later confirmed that only his brother was inside with him at the time. While his brother managed to dive for cover and escape the storm of bullets, Dolph was struck 22 times. The attackers had been precise, aiming to ensure there was no chance of survival. The courtroom listened in silence as prosecutors explained what happened next. A bakery employee who had been working behind the counter scrambled to the floor, covering her head as bullets tore through the glass and walls. Witnesses outside froze in disbelief before realizing what was happening. One woman dialed 911 in panic, shouting into the phone, he was inside Makida's. Someone just rolled up on him and took his life. The scene outside the bakery quickly filled with stunned bystanders. Many could not believe what they had just witnessed. Young Dolph, a man known for his music and his generosity, had been gunned down in broad daylight at one of his favorite neighborhood spots. For Memphis, it was more than just another crime. It was the loss of a hometown hero. Prosecutors explained how the shooters then fled in the same white Mercedes, speeding away as quickly as they had arrived. The vehicle, however, would later become one of the most critical pieces of evidence in solving the case. Surveillance footage captured the car before and after the shooting, and eventually, investigators were able to trace it back to the suspects. The jurors were shown photos of the crime scene: shattered glass, shell casings scattered across the ground, and the familiar Makeda's storefront marked with bullet holes. Each image was a grim reminder of how violent and calculated the attack had been. As these details were read out, Dolph's legacy was also highlighted. Prosecutors reminded the court that this was not just a rapper, but a man who carried deep ties to his city. His refusal to leave Memphis, despite fame and fortune, was both admired and, some believed, part of why he was targeted. He had enemies in the music industry, but he also had immense love from the people. To give context, prosecutors began to lay out the years of tension between Dolph and Yo Gotti's CMG label. They explained how a decision made years earlier, to stay independent and grow Paper Route Empire instead of signing with CMG, sparked a rivalry that never truly died. Diss tracks, public disputes, and even previous attempts on Dolph's life painted the picture of a feud that had reached dangerous levels. But on November 17, 2021, none of that history mattered to the bystanders who saw the shooting unfold. To them, it was raw shock and grief. People at the scene spoke of disbelief. How could a man who had just been planning to feed families for the holiday be taken away so suddenly, in such a violent fashion? The prosecutors ended that portion of testimony by emphasizing that the crime was not random. It was targeted, premeditated, and executed with precision. The files they revealed not only told the story of what happened that day, but also the forces that had been building behind the scenes for years. The jury now had the weight of those details on their shoulders. They had heard the final words, the timeline, and the evidence. More than just a shooting, this case represented betrayal, greed, and a rivalry that had pushed past music into deadly territory. For Memphis, the echoes of that afternoon at Makeda's still linger. And for the courtroom, the haunting reality was clear. A man who once gave away turkeys to families in need was hunted down like prey in the very city he worked so hard to uplift. But that day, he did not make it to the charity drive. Instead, while waiting inside the shop for his cookies, a white Mercedes pulled up outside. Two masked men jumped out, weapons in hand, and within seconds, the quiet scene was shattered. They opened fire on Dolph while his brother stood nearby. Court testimony revealed that even one suspect's girlfriend admitted he bragged about a hit, confirming the deadly plan. Surveillance cameras later captured the chilling scene that unfolded outside Makeda's bakery. Two masked men stepped out of a car, both dressed in hooded sweatshirts. One of them carried a powerful rifle fitted with a banana clip, while the other gripped a handgun tightly in his hand. Without hesitation, they approached the bakery and opened fire. It was 12:24 p.m. when Memphis police received several panicked calls, voices trembling with fear, reporting gunfire in the South Memphis neighborhood. By the time officers arrived, the damage had already been done. Inside the bakery, young Dolph was lying motionless on the floor. He had been struck 22 times, the sheer violence of the attack leaving no chance of survival. His brother, who had been with him during the visit, somehow escaped the storm of bullets without injury. But for Dolph, the outcome was tragically final. The employees inside Makeda's scrambled to save themselves. They ducked behind counters and storage shelves as the glass windows shattered, bullets tearing through the walls and doors. The sound of gunfire echoed across the block, and the sweet, familiar bakery turned into a terrifying battlefield within seconds. Customers and passers-by screamed in panic, some running for cover while others froze in disbelief. On the street outside, witnesses grabbed their phones, desperately calling loved ones and sharing what they had just seen. Their words were heavy with shock and grief. He was inside Maqueda's. Someone just rolled up and took his life. The disbelief in their voices reflected the feeling shared by many across the city. This was not just another shooting in Memphis. This was the death of a man who meant much more than music to his community. For the locals, young Dolph was more than a rap star. He was a symbol of pride, resilience, and hope. He had grown up in the same streets where he was now gunned down, and his success story inspired countless young people who believed that their dreams, too, were possible. To know that he was killed in his own neighborhood, at a place he often visited with love and comfort, felt like an unbearable betrayal of fate. The news spread like wildfire. Within minutes, social media was flooded with posts of disbelief, anger, and heartbreak. Videos from the scene began to circulate, showing flashing police lights, crowds gathering, and people sobbing uncontrollably. Fans, friends, and community members rushed to Maqueda's, some unable to hold back tears, others raising their voices in anger at the violence that had taken away yet another life too soon. To many, it was unthinkable. A man who gave back every Thanksgiving, who had turned his pain into power and his story into success, was now gone. The neighborhood that once celebrated his victories was now left mourning his loss. Young Dolph's death was not just the end of an artist's journey. It was a wound to Memphis itself, a moment that reminded everyone how fragile life can be when violence lurks just around the corner. The shooters sped off in the same white Mercedes, leaving shattered glass, shell casings, and heartbreak behind. As they fled, Dolph's brother fired back in desperation, but it was too late. Inside the courtroom today, jurors listened to these disturbing details with visible unease. Tension rose even higher when the girlfriend of one accused man took the stand and described exactly what she knew. The trial is only beginning, but already the picture being painted is one of betrayal, violence, and a devastating loss that shook the entire city. On the stand, Cornelius Smith's girlfriend revealed stunning details. She testified that Cornelius told her right after the shooting that a man named Big Juke had put a price on young Dolph's head. Big Juke, who is connected to Yo Gotti, allegedly offered between $1 million and $1.5 million for the hit. She explained that after the murder, the suspects rushed to a nearby apartment complex. There, they quickly changed their clothes and called her to pick them up. When shown surveillance footage in court, she admitted the car seen in the video was hers and identified Cornelius walking toward it with a small bag in hand. This footage matched the white Mercedes prosecutors had linked to the getaway. The trial also revealed how that Mercedes was discovered. According to prosecutors, it was found parked across the street from the home of Hernandez Govin, the man believed to have planned the entire hit. Govin, a known associate of Yo Gotti and Big Juke, was accused of orchestrating the murder. Police explained that after the shooting, Smith and Johnson abandoned the stolen Mercedes at 1174 Bradley Street, directly across from Govin's home. This crucial discovery tied them to the crime scene and pushed the manhunt into high gear. Federal marshals, Memphis detectives, and state troopers began working together, determined to track down those responsible. By January 2022, a major break came. Authorities named Justin Johnson, a 23-year-old aspiring rapper who went by Straight Drop, as one of the suspects. A $15,000 reward was announced for information leading to his capture. Johnson, who had been active on social media, posted about his innocence and even hinted that he would turn himself in, but instead, he disappeared. A week later, a tip came in. On January 11, 2022, U.S. Marshals tracked Johnson to a highway in Indiana. In a carefully planned takedown, they arrested him near Brazil, Indiana, while he was traveling in a truck with another man. The arrest went smoothly, ending weeks of searching for one of Dolph's alleged killers. The second suspect, Cornelius Smith Jr., was also brought in, but his situation unfolded differently. Police discovered that Smith had already been locked up since December 9, 2021, on an unrelated charge. This made it easier to connect him to the case. Investigators reached out to his girlfriend, the same one who had picked him up after the shooting, and within half an hour, she confirmed crucial details about his involvement. In court, she testified about her relationship with Cornelius, admitting she had last seen him when he dropped her off at work the day he was arrested. Angry at being left stranded with no car or phone, she later learned he had been taken into custody. What tied him directly to Dolph's murder, however, was the white Mercedes. Police revealed that Cornelius had stolen the car a month before using it as the getaway vehicle. On January 18, 2022, a Shelby County grand jury formally indicted both Johnson and Smith. Their charges included first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder, unlawful possession of a firearm, and theft of the stolen Mercedes used in the crime. With these charges weighing heavily on him, Cornelius decided he had only one option left: to cooperate. In court, he began pointing fingers, naming Yo Gotti, CMG, and Hernandez Govin as part of the plan. When asked to confirm his testimony, Cornelius responded clearly, "Yes, ma'am," before identifying those he claimed were behind the money and the orders. When Cornelius Smith took the stand, prosecutors wasted no time asking about Hernandez Govin. The man's brother, Anthony Big Juke Mims, allegedly placed a $100,000 bounty on young Dolph. In addition, smaller bounties were placed on other artists signed to Paper Route Empire. Hernandez Govin, the man Cornelius identified in court, was the one who organized how these hits would play out. According to Cornelius, Hernandez not only revealed where Dolph would be that day, but also promised that once the job was done, the shooters would get paid. Hernandez planned to keep $10,000 for himself for arranging the plan. The rest of the money was meant for Justin Johnson and Cornelius Smith, the men accused of carrying out the killing. The testimony painted a dark picture. Dolph's death was not random, nor was it a simple act of street violence. It was the result of years of rivalry, jealousy, and greed, ending with a bounty that turned his life into a target price.